I think some of the biggest anxiety sources from like, where should I work? Like, where does God want me to work? And what do I actually like doing? I think you spend a lot of your life doing what people tell you you're good at or naturally where you kind of just fit in. And then you're like, well, what do I actually want to do? And it feels like this big thing where there's a right and a wrong answer.
Where does God want me to work after graduation? Alumni, we're continuing our Help series this week, where we're sitting down with InterVarsity seniors and recent grads to talk through some of their biggest concerns about life after graduation. On this episode, we're joined by Tyler, a Mankato InterVarsity senior who's trying to figure out where in the world God wants him to work after graduation. He wants to honor God with his work, but he also wants to make sure he can eat, pay rent, and support a family someday. So what should he do? Let's see if we can give him some help. Welcome to After 4, your podcast for navigating life after graduation. I'm your host and guide, John Steele, and this one's for you, alumni. Tyler, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, John. I appreciate you having me in today.
Absolutely. Super excited to get to chat together. Before we jump in too formally here, Tyler, will you just give us a really brief introduction? Tell us your school, your major, and your anticipated grad date here.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm currently at Minnesota State University, Mankato. I'm a junior studying business management. Got an entrepreneurship minor in there as well.
Nice. Cool.
That's kind of the pace and place of where I'm at right now.
Okay, sweet. And when do you anticipate graduating at this point?
Yeah, sorry about that. So I'll be finishing up here a little bit early.
Okay.
My anticipated start would have been May of 27. I'm a little bit ahead in credits, so it should be this December 26, assuming that there's no whoopsie daisies by the academic advisors.
Of course.
Whatever happens, happens. Yeah.
That's great. So at the time of you and I chatting here, you're somewhere in the neighborhood of like 9 months out from wrapping things up on campus. Okay. So you're just like squarely in the demographic of this particular series that we're talking about of like, man, I'm looking towards graduation, or graduation isn't that far behind me. And there's some stuff that I'm either just feeling anxious about or that has become a real sticking point for life after graduation. And so I've got some big questions, and I'd like help with that. And so you're joining us to share some of your own experiences with that. And I'm excited to see if we can walk away with just like helping you feel encouraged about what's coming next. And B, hopefully we've got a couple of tangible things that you might be able to say like, oh, I should try that out and see how this helps prepare the way, maybe. So are you feeling ready to jump into some of that together?
Yeah, as ready as a guy who's not ready to know what the future holds.
Yeah. Well, it's sort of mysterious, very mysterious for both of us. Not sort of. It's very mysterious for both of us. We'll see what we can do. Well, Tyler, how can I help? What are you feeling anxious or just uncertain about when you think about navigating life after graduation in less than a year here? Yeah.
Well, again, thanks for having me. And that question right there speaks to the entire reality situation. I think it's when I look after graduation, I just see this, as I've described to my friends, this big old fog at the end of a cliff. You're like, my whole life, I've been working up to this cliff, right? I've been walking up the mountain. And now I get to the top of the cliff, and there's this fog that's been there, but the fog somehow is remaining dense. You would think there's this clarity of like, oh yeah, I'll just naturally walk out of graduation and then start working here. And I think some of the biggest anxiety sources from like, where should I work? Like, where does God want me to work? And what do I actually like doing? I think you spend a lot of your life doing what people tell you you're good at or naturally where you kind of just fit in. And then you're like, well, what do I actually want to do? And it feels like this big thing where there's a right and a wrong answer. I don't think that's necessarily true, of course, but it feels that way at times. Yeah. And then also you have to consider some real things too, like finances. Like, hey, even if I really want to do this, I don't have any money. You got to go somewhere where you can do a little bit of both. Those are some of the big things I'm thinking through.
Yeah, what an image. The two words that stand out to me are this dense fog and a cliff. Those are both like, we get these dense fog warnings on our phones of like, hey, be careful about travel because it could be dangerous. That's like concerning enough that it feels foggy, but that it feels like it's sort of at the precipice of there's no ground under my feet as far as I can tell coming up here. And that evokes some emotions for sure. And not unusual whatsoever. And there was something that you said about like, sort of people putting you in places where it's like, okay, this is what you're supposed to do. And then you are approaching this time where it's like, okay, and now what do I do? But I mean, legitimately, you've had 20 some years of it just being, you go to school. That's the thing. And for the most part, the teachers just tell you this is what you need to know. I'm going to teach it to you. And once you get to college, you get to pick a little bit more. But even then, you have an advisor who's helping you like discern kind of next steps and the right layout of classes and those kinds of things. And now it feels like, all right, here you go, little bird. It's time to leave the nest and fly out on your own. Why is it that you think this specific scenario is causing the anxiety or uncertainty that it is?
That's a good question. I think this is where I appreciate my sister Hallie. I think she's been on this podcast before.
She has been. Yeah. She has been. Yes.
And she kind of helps me discern through some of my thoughts as a wise counsel, in the sense that I'm like, why do I feel this way? Like, what causes any sort of fear, just in general, right? Yeah. As the Bible says, it's like, why would we have any fear about tomorrow? There's no need to, because we know the author of all things. So if that's true, and if he's the rock, he's our fortress, if he's truly God of all creation and we're actually pursuing his will, there has to be some sort of security and like, okay, he's got me, right? And not just me.
Absolutely.
Like, and it's for his glory. And even if I make mistakes, like there is a way back through grace, So thinking through some of those things, it really eases your mind. But I think knowing myself, you asked what causes it for me. I'm a people pleaser. So I want to do what makes others happy and put smiles on people's faces. I don't want to disobey God, of course. It's like it's a healthy fear of God that can turn into an unhealthy fear, in the sense of, like I said, you lack grace for yourself. But also you just feel like you're supposed to know, maybe, or like you said, I'm used to being told my whole life, like, this is the rubric for life. There's school. Here's the assignment. I go execute. I come back. But at some point, all of a sudden, it's like they pull the rug out and there's like, actually, there was no rubric at all. People were all making it up. We were pretending the whole time that there was like this order for structured society. Even the teachers. The teachers I have, like, they're like, I kind of just fell into it. I don't know. So, all those things combined.
I mean, you just named so many things there, and it already speaking to a couple of the things that I'm wondering about, and that's maybe some of the expectations or assumptions that you might have about this next season of life. And there were a couple of things that, like, I should just know. At this point, I should just know that was one. And two, I heard you say earlier that, like, what is the thing God wants me to do? You said something similar to that. And it makes me wonder if those maybe are a couple of assumptions that you're holding on to. Is that, like, well, by now I should have enough information to just absolutely know without question what I should be doing. And two, there's one perfect trajectory for where God wants my life to go. And if I don't hit it, then I'm off track. So does that feel? Am I picking up on some of? Is that reality for you? You're feeling some of those things?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it sums up how I think. Whether I realize it's flawed or not, it definitely sums up how I think.
Yeah. Well, and it leads into maybe some thoughts of, like, I've put a lot of time and effort into my education, and so I have I think it's right for you to, or it's understandable that you would say, like, I should have a really good idea of what I should do next. And also, I think you desire to make wise choices and you want to be obedient to where God is leading you. And so that can maybe also narrow our minds unnecessarily sometimes to say, therefore, there's just one right way to do this. And if I pick the wrong thing, then I'm on a divergent course from the Lord's will, and my life is just going to suck moving forward.
Well, that's, just to add on to that, I think you make a good point, because this is something I've been thinking through too. You get to that reality where you're like, okay, there is this one right trajectory. And then you go, well, if that's not true, that means I could do 100 things within God's will, right? And they would all be equally good. And I've heard my friends say this recently. They're saying, this is not from a Bible verse, take that with a grain of salt, but
yeah, sure.
God's will is a playground in the sense that he doesn't really care if I'm on a swing or on like the little weird shovel thingy that comes up in the sand and scoops.
Yeah.
It's more about how I'm doing it, and am I pursuing a relationship with him in that? Am I trying to shut him out and be independent? Is my life about me, or is it about his kingdom? And this is why we study the word. We have to literally plead with God that he would open our hearts to love him more and see him more for who he is. Because otherwise you get lost in the details and the money and the housing and the rent and all these little details that don't matter. So that analogy has kind of kept me on there is no one right answer. But right, it's like,
yes,
interesting way to think about it.
And there might be some overtly wrong answers. Like there are some that are just like, if I apply a little bit of wisdom, I can just cross this off the list for sure. It's just not a good idea. And I will say, you mentioned before that you're a people pleaser. That will be a very important thing for you to be able to do, is to sit down and as objectively as possible, like, what are the things that maybe people are inviting you to do, or there might be some expectation for you that you might tend to say yes just because you don't want to let somebody down? And that is not the right reason to say yes to a next phase of life, especially if it is like, this is just something that I am not good at. Actually, it takes a lot of life from me. And this just is not the way that God has invited me to participate in his kingdom. And so I need to politely decline this person, even though it sort of hurts my soul a little bit to tell somebody no.
That's funny. Yeah.
As a fellow people pleaser, that is an issue that I have, that I've had from time to time. So one other thing that comes to my mind, Tyler, that sometimes I know I've had issues with is thinking that the world is divided into secular and sacred jobs. That I either need to, if I want to have a sacred job that is fully set in the will of God, then I need to pick something that is overtly ministry. Like that is what I must do. And if I don't do that and I pick a secular job that is in the world of business, like you're studying entrepreneurship, like something like that you're like, I want to build something, but I feel like I'm supposed to be in ministry. And maybe you are. Like, I don't want to discredit that whatsoever. Maybe you are supposed to be. But we can unnecessarily separate those and say, well, if I go into the workforce that is not overtly ministry related, then it's a secular job and it's for me. And I'm choosing something selfish. I'm choosing money over choosing Jesus. And I think that we can unnecessarily separate those things out because our jobs are sacred. And there are some jobs that just should not be done. They should be eliminated from the list. But yeah, I wonder if there could be the possibility of an unnecessary dichotomy that can be at war within us sometimes about secular versus sacred, and if that could be something that is adding to the anxiety. Maybe not. Maybe it's not. But for any InterVarsity student, I just have to think, man, maybe there's a war going on inside about secular versus sacred work when I graduate.
Absolutely. Oh no, I've had those thoughts for sure for probably 2 or 3 years. I mean, coming out of high school, even, it's like, this is what I'm supposed to do because that's what Christians should do. Right. And that's like, you're drawing a box and making yourself exist in it. That's not what God says. And you talk about the amount of people in the world who have an impact that are Christians in a secular environment. It's so needed that we would go and be in the world and not just like, okay, we're going to stay in the church over here and everybody else. Right. Because otherwise you're just this little bubble, right? And the world never actually experiences the light or the salt that Jesus says we are in the Sermon on the Mount, right? So exactly.
And that's, and it may be, as I already said, it may be that the Lord is inviting you into an overtly ministry job, but to feel like I need to say yes to this because this is the Christian thing to do. That's like, okay, all right, let's think through why we're saying yes to what we say yes to. Tyler, I have a couple other questions here to help us just keep painting a picture and getting dig a little further into this. Can I ask, what are some of the options that are floating around in your mind right now that you're like, oh man, where do I go with these? What are some of the options you're considering?
Yeah, great question. So funny enough, we're talking about the secular versus sacred divide. I'm looking at internships for this coming summer right now. And literally in the conversation, I had an interview this morning with Menards, so that's for a management internship. And that's awesome. Obviously not working in a church or working for a food shelf or a nonprofit, but I'm not feeling bad about it, right? It's like, this could certainly be a spot where God has me going. Otherwise, I'm applying to Pulse Evangelism's summer internship as well, which is very much so focused on moving the gospel into the world and building skills to do that. So kind of discerning, like, both could be good. Both have different financial impacts, of course. Both look a little different for my calendar, for how I spend my time. And it's, those are two options. Otherwise, thinking about InterVarsity as a place where I could pursue a staff position with them long term. Talking with our local chapter lead, Steve, about some of those opportunities.
Good old Steve.
Good old Steve. Steve Baby's awesome. And then also looking at an opportunity again, like Dayton Freight, another like just random management logistics operations internship.
Yeah.
Same thing. It's none of these feel wrong in any particular sense. They're just, how do you know which one's right? And then we get back to that same train of thought from earlier.
I wonder, Tyler, if you knew that you couldn't fail, what would you do? Like, if you knew that it would not let anybody down and that you would just soar, even if it's not on that list. It doesn't have to be one of those 4, but maybe if it's more helpful to keep it in those 4 that you just mentioned, if you couldn't fail, what would you do?
Man, that's a great question. That is a great question that deserves a lot of reflection. What would I do if I could
I didn't
not
ask
fail?
you to prepare for that question.
No, that's okay. I mean, wow. I feel like I'd probably pick a job like either. Yeah, I love the idea of growing in evangelism skills. So that intrigues me just naturally because I want to learn how to preach. Like, I want to learn how to genuinely preach and tell people about the gospel. But I also want to like work in a corporate environment and see what that would be like and like legitimately gain skills. I know it would push me out of my comfort zone in different ways. Like, I actually have to be on it in an environment that I'm not familiar with. And then again, too, there's like, if I was choosing logically with like the circumstances in my life, I have to consider finances. I would definitely weigh that in as a factor if I wasn't people pleasing or choosing for any one person. Again, not even like I'm putting the money over Jesus. It's just like, I need to eat. I need to live. I need to sleep. So,
absolutely. Yes. You would be foolish to not be asking those questions.
So starting to not feel bad for choosing, a job that maybe pays more or is at least helping you move in the right direction financially. I'd probably steer towards Pulse Evangelism, or I would consider Dayton Freight Menards very equal because it's just pretty much the same thing, different company.
Similar tracks, different companies. Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, I think that's helpful for us to know that that's helpful data there. What do you think you need to know that will make it possible to confidently make a decision? Like, what is is there a question or two or a sense of some sort that you need to have that will make it feel possible to decide about the next step?
Some of the smaller things have started coming together, but like, where would I be living? Legitimately, if I worked like the Pulse Evangelism one, for example, I might need another job. So like, would I keep working the summer job that I have currently, or would I find a new job that fits? Like, what are the hours for that? What does it look like? Is it more of like a remote thing where I kind of design my schedule? Am I working with their schedule? Is there a way to do 2 things at once, or, kind of do a half and half, keep doing some of what I've done in the past? Otherwise, very just like practical questions.
Yeah,
it's
for
nothing, no rocket science really. It's just kind of like, hey, is it feasible that I would do this and still have, the ability to, like I said, pay for life, but also like keep learning and growing in the areas I'm interested. So some of those very simple questions. I will say, those are my initial thoughts.
Yeah.
The background definitely has some of what you're asking too, where it's like, is this launching me into a a trajectory where I'm able to like maximize my gifting essentially. Like, can I, if I take that Pulse evangelism track, is that like the thing I not need, but like, basically once I graduate, I'm not really sure I can go back to an opportunity like that. So is this my window to try something like that? Or is it something that I could do in the future and take more of like a simple operational like route through graduation through like Dayton Freighter Menards? So yeah, some of those, like, is this where God is going to be able to use me and shape me, or is there some sort of way it'll happen even if I take a different route, right? Like, is there a one size fits all there?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. Is this where God's going to be able to use me and shape me? What do you think the answer to that question is?
I would argue that God's desire to shape me is a lot more in his hands than it is in mine.
I think
he's going to manipulate the circumstances in my life to happen exactly as they need to, because I'm the clay and he's the potter. But I don't think my decision can really change his sovereign will for the universe.
I think you might be onto something there, Tyler. I think that's I think the answer is yes. Like, for any of those four things, the answer is yes. Like, God can use and shape you in any one of those places. And the other part of that is any one of those places can also use and shape you. And so there is an element of like, who is going to be in charge? Once I make this decision, once this decision is made, once the Lord and I do this together of making this decision, then who's going to be the one that is in charge of me as I do this? And so that, just another thing to keep in mind. But as you said, I believe that you're right. Yes, the Lord can use and shape you in any one of those locations, which does lead me to one more question that I have before we move into maybe practical sides of things. And if you have further responses to that previous question that come up as a result of this, that's great. We can keep both of those in tandem here. But what do your conversations with God look like around this topic at this point? Like, how are the two of you partnering together thus far in this process?
I always feel like I'm not doing enough or asking enough, and that is both legitimate and a bit of OCD with myself. Like, oh, you're never doing enough. Okay. When are you ever doing enough for God? And it's the aspect of like, So I'll leave that as like a side detail, that totally. Like lingering feeling. But absolutely. I think I definitely could be more intentional in the quiet time aspect of like, I'm just going to sit. And when I do try and sit and talk about like these big life questions, like career, relationships, finances, all these things that are out of my control, but they are my decisions to make ultimately. I kind of just approach God, and first I try to follow like the Lord's instruction for the Lord's Prayer. Like, first, like, hallowed be thy name. Like, who am I in the presence of? Like, I want to acknowledge that I'm speaking like we were talking about, to the sovereign God. Even if I'm not feeling that way, I usually just have to remind myself. And I'm not always like, I'm not that guy always, right? Of course.
Sure.
A lot of times you come in, you're like, Lord, I'm just feeling overwhelmed. And then you're like, But, kind of try to steady my heart. Like, who am I talking to? And try and speak praise to God, even though I'm not feeling it. And acknowledge that whatever path I'm choosing, whatever ways I'm going, it brings you back to Proverbs chapter 3, verses 5 and 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, right? Do not lean on your own understanding. And that one gets me a lot. I'm like, well, I feel like all my decisions are my understanding. I'm always leaning on my understanding. But and then it's acknowledging him, or some translations say to know him in all your ways, and he will make straight your paths, or make your paths straight. Yeah. So it's like that trust that I will bring this to you. I'm going to keep telling you about it, how I'm feeling. Like, I'm going to let you into my emotions. And then at the end of the day, like, I just got to let it go and kind of just go live. Like, I have homework to do, right? I have friends to hang out with and people to build a life with in the meantime. So I've kind of had to learn that balance of getting out of my head, because I'm oftentimes so up here that I miss out on the world around me. And it's like, dang, what a sad thing. So that's kind of, it's kind of where I'm at. Sorry.
No, that's great. That's really helpful. I wonder, Tyler, as you reflect on maybe times that you've spent with the Lord in this process, do you get the sense that you are trying to convince God to give you the answers, or that you are trying to get yourself to quiet down and listen? Like, do You understand sort of the difference in those perspectives? Is there one of those that seems more like the experience that you've been having with God in this than the other?
I see what you're saying. Let me just talk through this to make sure I'm understanding it correctly, but I think I know what you're saying. So the first would be like, I'm trying to like pry this answer out of God with a crowbar, like, give me the answer.
Yes,
and
exactly.
then the other would be more so like this patient stillness is kind of maybe what you're alluding to. I would say maybe I feel like I come in with the first option and then I try and settle into the second.
Okay.
It's like, here's how I feel. Like, God, I'm like, I need to know. And then I'm like, I don't need to know. But that's where I said I need to really work on, I think, increasing my stillness before God. And this is not even to get answers. Like, we don't come to God as like this mystic magic being who just, vending machine shoots us. This is the next right step. And then you're like, thanks, God. And then you just, right. So it's been some learning in that. But I think I'm really trying to work into the second option where I have this relationship. And this has been some of my spiritual growth right now, is just like, God is a very relational God. He has this abundance of grace. You talk about some of the core foundations of our faith is like, we are saved by, grace alone through faith. It's like, there's nothing I can do to have this right standing with him to begin with. So just coming with that heart and then being like, okay, and there's this profound sense of gratitude that I should have or must have, or I want to have for what has been done for me, right? For the blood of Christ, literally exchanging my death for righteousness. So I'm just literally trying to go back to the basics in order to reestablish, a focused, quiet time. And then from there, I think, like you said, trying to get away from the crowbar, like, tell me, God, and more so just like, what are you trying to speak to my heart today in any facet of my life? Yeah. And then if there's something that you want to tell me about this work specifically, although I will say this might be something you can speak into. I feel at times too, I'm like I'm not allowed to ask God, or maybe not allowed, but like I don't want it to be just transactional. So then I almost shy away from asking like really specific questions, or like, is this correct? Or is this something I should steer away from? And I almost don't like asking those sometimes because it feels too transactional. Sure. But, if that's a way of putting it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that speaks into absolutely some of the things that I'm wondering as far as next steps for you. I will say, from my perspective, take this with a grain of salt because it's just me. But I mean, I think there are places in Scripture that tell us to come and to ask, and like the Lord gives good gifts to His children, and that He enjoys us coming before Him. And like you said, it's not just transactional of like, he's sort of like our genie in the bottle, like, okay, give me my wishes for the day. But that if it is coming before Him and saying like, Lord, I want to partner with you really well. And I know that your way is what's best. And I know that oftentimes I'm at war. I can be at war with that way, and I don't want to be. Like, I really want to follow you in this. I think that God's going to honor that request, Tyler. Like, I really think that God knows your heart and that He sees you thinking through this and wanting to be wise about your decisions, and to come before God and to say, can we work together on this? Would you help me? Like, help me make a really good decision here. I don't think that there's any reason to shy away from that and to be consistent. One last question. I already said I only had one last question, but I thought of another one, and that's, Tyler, do you think it's possible that there isn't a wrong answer? Do you think it's possible that the Lord has given you 4 really awesome ideas that He's like, Tyler, there are literally millions of things that you could do. I've narrowed it down to 4 or 5 for you. Why don't you just pick one?
I like that perspective a lot. I've never thought about it that way. And given my indecisive nature, I've realized too, so my personality, I think, can come across often as like the guy who sits back, kind of waits for stuff to come to me, or, like maybe doesn't take as much initiative, even though like people would say, I think I'm hardworking, like I'm a genuine guy. Like it might come across that I'm like this big procrastinator who's like not urgent, like not timely, and that is really just like this overflow of me being so much like, I want to do the right thing, like you said. Yeah. And then I sit and I wait and I discern and I discern and I discern and I discern. And eventually you get to the end of the rope and you're like, oh, I don't have a lot of time to make a decision. And for homework, that can be like, oh, I have a lot to do in a short amount of time all of a sudden, because I wanted to do it so well that I just like neglected starting. It's like that fear of failure, getting over perfectionism. And it all is like, from the smallest example to the biggest thing, it's all the same. It's the same source of the same problem, right? So, to exactly your point, I think it is legitimately possible that I could just pick something. And God has been so gracious and so kind to narrow it down to 4 options.
Yeah.
And and then continuing to partner with him in that option that I choose, like you said, I think is absolutely accurate.
Yeah. So then I wonder, I mean, I have some thoughts for you maybe of things you could try, but I wonder just like as a result of this conversation, do you feel like there are some practical either next steps or things that you could lean into that would help you make a final decision about where it is that God's inviting you to work after you graduate?
Yeah, in terms of tools, I think the first I'm going to use is that self-reflection question. Like, what would you do if you couldn't let anybody down? I really like that. Or if there wasn't like a wrong choice necessarily. Of course, like having already assumed that you've spent the time to be intentional and thoughtful in considering your options. So taking that, I'm going to use that legitimately. I'm going to go through each one and be like, is this something that I would do? Like if there was no outside person speaking into my ears or being like, hey, I really want you to do this because I think it could be good for you. Right? Like removing all the voices and just sitting there being like, what would I choose? Like God's given me a heart and a mind and passions and skills. So like, what would I choose based on those realities? I think that's one very, very powerful tool I'm going to try to apply. Awesome. And I mean, that goes into like every area of my life. So
yeah, for sure. Absolutely. That I think that's awesome. And that essentially speaks into what I was gonna invite you to consider, this sort of examine mentality of like, as I go through my day, what does it look like for me to pause and to reflect and to think about like, where did I sense like that the Lord was leaning in with me in these places? And are there places where I sense like the Lord was sort of pulling back with me? And are those places where he is offering some encouragement for, or maybe saying like, maybe not. And to spend that time reflecting and growing in hearing the voice of the Lord and sensing his leadership in your life in these places. And the other one is something you've actually already said. I was going to ask you if there was somebody that you know, that you trust, that has a healthy relationship with their work. And it sounds to me like you and your sister are already like sort of vibing in that direction of like, what does it look like to go to her as somebody with wise counsel?
Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't say it's going to be tomorrow that I'll know, but I think I'm able to maybe rule out some things or maybe like rethink some of how I was thinking about my options, as you were saying, like not so much under this pressure of like, okay, there's a wrong, but maybe just like, hey, maybe this isn't quite right for right now, or maybe this would be better. Kind of like on those darn multiple choice tests when the teachers will ask, which one is the best?
Which is the best
of these 4? And you're like, they're all good. They're really all good.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. Like it's sort of it's almost like an embarrassment of riches to say like, man, God's given me a bunch of really awesome options here. Right. Like, okay, which if I couldn't screw it up, which I can't to some degree, like which one would I pick then? And to lead with that. Last couple of things, a couple of resources that I would recommend to you, self-referencing resources here, I'll say, is that, we've been doing this podcast for years now, and we've had a bunch of really awesome conversations with experts. And so I would recommend this, a couple of episodes to you. One is episode 166, Where Does God Want Me to Go? Like literally the question you're asking, and it's developing tools for discernment. And the second is episode 112, which is a foundation for vocational transition. And in that conversation, we talk about developing a solid foundation for how we think about work and vocation, which might also help bridge the gap between some of that like sacred and secular mindset, and maybe alleviating some of those concerns. And that the last resource is that I want to give you a copy. I want to get you a copy of the book After College by Erica Young Reitz. If you don't already have it, I would love to get that for you, because it's just a fantastic resource for thinking about next steps of life coming up here for you. Tyler, as I think about my own experience, I will say, I already said this before, but nothing is wasted. Even if you make a quote unquote wrong decision, there's nothing that's wasted. Tyler, I moved super far away from home. I got a degree that I don't use in the field. I spent a couple of years teaching, and I don't teach anymore. I spent most of a decade as a campus staff with InterVarsity, and now I'm a podcast host. I mean, very few of those things feel overtly related to one another, but God is using every single one of them to accomplish his will in and through my life in the unique way that he wants to do with me. And he's going to do the same thing for you. Even if you like take a few years to figure out, like if there's a few quote unquote wrong choices, like, man, there are things you're going to take away from that he is going to use to put together this really great masterpiece of skills and abilities and experiences that you're going to be able to take with you as you continue to identify like that path. And that path has a lot of space to move around in. You just almost can't screw it up. Like if there are choices that you know without a shadow of a doubt are unhealthy or bad or just like, I don't want to do it. Unless it's just disobedience, I don't want to do it. That's a different story.
Right.
But like feel free to cross those things off the list. And outside of that, Tyler, I really don't think that you can screw this up. Like I remember when I was a little kid and it was time for me to take on mowing the lawn at our house. And my dad was like, here are the boundaries of our yard. Here's how you use the lawnmower correctly. This is ideally what the lawn would look like afterwards. But as long as you do it safely, you can't screw this up. All I'm asking you to do is to cut the grass. That's what I want.
That's so funny. I love that.
And I was probably terrible at it at first. And as time went on, my lines got closer and tighter and neater. And I got better at mowing the grass, which was the ultimate goal. And I just got better at it over time, doing what my father had invited me and asked me to do. And I think the same thing is happening for you in this season of life, that God is inviting you to take steps, trusting him, that no matter where he takes you, no matter which direction you walk, he's going to walk with you, and he's going to be with you. He's going to be waiting for you at the end. Like either way. Both of those things are going to be happening. And I think that there's just a lot of space for you a lot of freedom for you to be able to improv as you go along. And that God's just excited to see the way that Tyler, this unique dude that he made, the way that you're going to improv in the spaces that he's putting you.
Man, that's cool. That's a good way of thinking about it. The grass. Go cut the grass. It could look like this at the end. Doesn't have to. Yeah. It probably should, but that's all right. Give it your best go there, kid. You're going to learn by doing it. Yeah. There is something special about that too. God just letting us live. Like he lets us go through, refining fire to remove impurities and also just to grow up. Like he lets us mature by living. It's not like he's rushing the process for us to become 80 years old, right? Or, he wants you to be 20 when you're 20 and 30 when you're 30 and 40 when you're 40 and take it day by day. It's like God is a slow-paced, patient God. He's not like our fast-paced American society is, right?
No, exactly. Tyler, thanks so much for hanging out, and thanks for your willingness to share these things and to talk through them with me. And I really, obviously, because I've already asked you a couple of times, my hope is that this is helpful and encouraging for you. But I also think that you are giving a really great gift to other alumni like you who are tuning in, who are in a similar season of life and asking, there are very few people in your shoes who aren't asking this exact question. So thank you for being willing to say like, hey, I'll ask it publicly and we'll see where things go. So thanks a lot for gifting us with that. I really believe that that this is something that's going to be helpful and encouraging for your fellow alumni who are wondering the same thing. So where does God want you to work after graduation? It really matters, don't get me wrong, but not always for the reasons that we think. You likely aren't being faced with a single God-honoring decision and then one or more self-serving decisions that you're trying to demystify or discern between. My guess is that if a line of work is overtly sinful or self-serving, God has probably already made that clear to you. And at that point, it's really just a question of obedience, and I'm guessing that you've already removed it as an option anyways. So problem solved there. I think most of us are actually stuck trying to decide between a handful of good to great options that God has curated for us. The problem is that we're often getting stuck trying to find the deeper meaning, the one and only truly spiritual choice. And I think that's just not the decision that God's actually inviting us to make, most of the time at least. Like Tyler, I'll bet you're asking this question because you truly do want to honor God with your work. And like Tyler, I'll bet God has offered you options that will allow you to do exactly that. Pick one. Which one are you most excited about or most gifted in? Is there an opportunity that you'll never have again in life? Just give one a try. And if you find out that it's not the right fit, it's not a failure, alumni. You've learned something. You've probably gained some useful experience, and you've just narrowed the field of future decisions. All of those are wins, not failures. Alumni, your work, your vocation, your purpose, and your ability to honor God in all of those things, it's not riding on a single decision about your first job after graduation. Be thoughtful and prayerful and invite wise counsel. Please do those things. But then feel free to just make a decision. And wherever you go, just make it your priority to honor God, to bless your coworkers, and to do your absolute best in your work. The Lord will direct you from there. I promise you that. Hey, if you wanted to catch any of the episodes that I recommended to Tyler, I put links to them in the show notes. And if you're a senior or a recent grad who's listening and you would like to join me on the podcast for a conversation like this one, reach out to me. Send me a DM on Instagram at After4Pod. I would love to see if I can help you with a specific issue that you're having about navigating life after graduation. Tyler, thank you so much for sharing with us about this big decision that you're trying to make. I trust that God is directing your paths. Alumni, be sure to come back next week. Our friend Josephine from the 200th episode celebration is returning, and she's wanting help adjusting to a new town after graduation. Let's see if we can help her out. Until then, consider sharing this episode with one person who needs to hear it, and I will see you in the after, alumni. Thanks for listening to After 4. This podcast is brought to you by the InterVarsity Alumni Relations Team, hosted and produced by John Steele, production assistance by Mike Zentera, edited by Caleb Leppert, and our After 4 theme music was written and performed by John Steele.